Okay, so welcome everyone to this webinar as part of our series Blindness and Media Engagement. I'm Catalin Brilla, the organizer of this series, and I have the pleasure today to introduce our webinar facilitator, Dr. Amy Kavanagh. Amy is an award-winning disability rights activist and campaigner. She advocates for a more accessible world through consultancy, writing, policy influencing, media and public speaking. She's engaged with a variety of disability issues, including public transport, social inclusion, video games, accessible social media, feminism, and the built environment, all with a core commitment to challenge negative attitudes towards disability. And she will talk today about online safety and how to prevent cyberbullying. So Amy, many thanks for being here today, and over to you.
Thank you very much. It's lovely to be here. Thank you for including me. When I heard about this project, I thought it was really fantastic, and I wanted to find a way to kind of share some insights. I know our conversation that we've just had about all those kind of technical challenges and everything, it's really interesting to be part of that as well. I'm blind. I'm registered severely sight impaired. I do have residual vision. I'm a guide dog user. I am also mum of a toddler. I live in London. And as I was just saying, I do content creation, although I feel like I'm losing my passion for it a little bit at the moment. So it's nice to be in this space and maybe reignite that with you all today. Just a bit of housekeeping. You're very welcome to ask questions throughout. I will pause and check in with you, but we should also have time at the end for kind of a wider discussion. I'll gently request to kind of keep microphones off if you're not talking, just kind of minimizes background noise. I also understand today that some of the topics are a bit challenging and difficult. So I would ask that you reflect before you share anything, just in case it could be distressing to others. But before I get started, I'd love to know a little bit more about you all. And if anyone would like to share kind of what is their favorite social media platform, what do they use the most, where do they share their content the most? Would anyone like to go first?
Hi, I'm Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
I'm a retired nurse by trade. I have lots of bits and pieces that I do voluntarily. I'm church-based mainly. I do voluntary for, actually I do need to say one thing, and most importantly, I'm partially sighted. And I'm also wheelchair accessible as well. I always forget those things because I'm always sat down when I do these meetings, so those things you kind of forget.
Yeah.
I do voluntary pieces. I do helping with families, helping with Bible study. I also do experts by experience. So
Oh, that's great.
Patients previously, I feed back to the hospital and have lots of dealings with those. I help the local council with accessibility. So I'm very eager to hear more from you about your accessibility bits and pieces that you do. So that's really good. And my main point of feeding is through Facebook. I do it on a personal level, but I also do it through for the church and through for accessibility locally as well.
Thank you, Sarah. Would anyone else like to share just a quick introduction and what their favorite social media platforms are?
I can go next.
Sure.
So my name is Gulshan Krona. I work for Thomas Pocklington Trust as an employment coordinator. And my favorite social media platform is TikTok videos.
Great. Thank you, Gulshan.
No problem.
Anybody else?
On the audio now. Okay, I'll speak. I'm Stephen.
Hi, Stephen.
Hello. I'm comparatively new to a lot of this. I'm registered blind. I'm in my 50s. My background's journalistic, but I do stand-up comedy.
Great.
I mainly used Facebook until at this stage. I signed up to X about last year, and then instantly, sort of for reasons that are completely inexplicable, my account was suspended, which was very odd because I'd only ever sent 3 tweets promoting my Camden Fringe show, and then beep, it's gone. Which was really unsettling. You know, people say there can be a little bit no rhyme or reason to these things, so.
Yeah.
That's what I've been advised. These things can happen. It's very odd, but up till now it's been Facebook, which is part of the reason why I'm super keen for this course, to learn more about using other platforms such as creating blogs and podcasts and blogs and all that whatnot.
Great.
Was there anything else to say? I suppose.
No, that's great. That was a fantastic introduction. Thank you,
Oh, all right.
Steve.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Shall I go next?
Hi.
Hello. So I'm Vicky. I work for Dorset Blind Association as like club coordinator, comes with admin work. I tend to use Facebook and Instagram mainly. I like taking photos, so I sometimes post them on Instagram. But yeah, I'm just keen to learn more about other platforms.
Great. Thank you, Vicky. Anybody else?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
My name is Mohammed. Sorry, I just joined a little late, so I might have missed the introductions, but
No, we're in them now. You're doing a cracking job, Mohammed.
all right, that's good. I am a communications intern at Beacon Centre for the Blind, which is one of the wonderful opportunities provided with the Thomas Pocklington Trust Get Set Progress internships.
Fantastic.
So do quite a lot around social media, so posting on Facebook and Instagram, website, doing talking news, and some other bits and bobs and loads of other stuff. Which is very exciting because Beacon's in its 150th year as well, so there's loads of exciting things around.
Oh, great.
Personally, posting, I think that's what we were talking about. So I think I probably prefer Instagram, and that's probably because I don't know, prior to my sight loss, I was a graphic designer, so like I kind of still have that kind of, with a bit of useful vision I still got. And Facebook, because the layout hasn't really changed, like it's very easy to navigate, and looking to kind of also get into potentially documentary filmmaking, so that's interesting. That's me.
Wow, love it. Thank you, Mohammed. Anybody else? You don't have to.
Hi folks, Michelle speaking. So my name's Michelle. I do a number of different things. Dance fitness, instructing, visual awareness training, and some performing.
Wow.
I have a Facebook account, LinkedIn account, X account, and Instagram, but I'm not very active on any of them right now.
Thank you, Michelle. I wondered if LinkedIn was going to come up. I'm always interested to see if LinkedIn ever comes up. How do you find LinkedIn for accessibility?
Oh, it's a blooming nightmare.
It is, isn't it?
It's a nightmare. It really is. I know there are keystrokes that you can use to get around, and I think it's a matter of having to take time out to sort of learn what they are. I use JAWS. I have some useful residual vision, so I do. Recently I've kind of had a little look on, using the iPad for LinkedIn. It kind of feels a little bit easier for some things, but when wanting to type messages, I kind of prefer to do it with on my laptop.
Right. Thank you, everybody. That's really helpful. It shows kind of really we have a big range of different levels of experience and kind of different platforms that people are interested in. I'm going to start by sharing an online safety risk framework. Kind of sounds more technical than it is. And it's something that's often actually used when talking to young people about online safety. But actually, as adults, and especially for those who might be new to navigating certain social media platforms, I think this framework or this way of talking about online safety has a lot of useful information. So it has the 4 C's: content, contact, conduct, and contract. And I'm going to kind of go through each of those and give a bit of an example. So content means the information that we share online, and also the information that we might consume online. And sometimes that might be content that we don't want to consume, or we find unpleasant or difficult or inappropriate. And I think, to be honest, the biggest takeaway, if you have one takeaway from this session, and I'm going to try and keep it light, but obviously we're talking about safety, and so there need to be some truths in here. Online is forever. And I know we say that, but it's worth really thinking about what that means. Because I think it's easy to forget that online is forever. Because yes, we can absolutely delete pictures, words, even our accounts. But all it takes is one reshare of a screenshot, and that information is out of your control forever. It's also important to remember that pretty much everything that you put online is public. Even in a closed group, even if you have a protected account, people can find ways of sharing information outside of those spaces. And they could be sharing it online, or they could read something you post on Facebook and just tell it to somebody that they know, because that's kind of how humans work. So it's really important when we post online to think about what we're posting and what that means, and what the implications can be when it is forever. And I think it's really easy to get carried away sometimes with what we post, and it can be really enjoyable to post, and you should enjoy social media. But my kind of rule of thumb is, if you wouldn't say it out loud on a bus, why are you putting it on the internet? And I kind of want you to kind of keep that present in your minds. I don't want to scare you or make it feel worrying, but that is just simply the truth of the internet. And of course, it being public and forever means that anyone can read it. Your bosses, your neighbors, your kids. So it is really important to be conscious when we create content or when we use social media that it does exist in perpetuity. And researchers like Caitlin can tell us that, it will be used potentially in perpetuity by people looking back at the history of what our society was like. So that doesn't mean that you shouldn't use the internet, but that we need to use it safely. Contact is about who we interact with online. Again, it's a cliche and it feels like we go, yeah, Amy, I know this. Don't give out personal details. Most of you probably wouldn't post your address or your phone number on Instagram, but also try and think about how you might be revealing information about yourself, your location, or your personal routines in other ways. So, for example, I recently followed a content creator on TikTok, and it was obviously recommended to me through the algorithms because I talk about my guide dog on TikTok, and this person was also sharing about their guide dog. And the video started, come on a walk with me with my guide dog from my house to my local supermarket. And obviously that person had not thought at all about the implication that they had just put on the internet for anybody to see their exact route that they walk very regularly from their house to the supermarket. And that's not a very safe thing to do, because you're then giving away where you live, areas where you may travel or work. And it's worth considering if that's something that you would feel comfortable doing. Also think about when we check in places or share your location at the time you're visiting somewhere. So if you're somebody that really enjoys doing something like live streaming, maybe don't do it late at night when you're walking through a train station by yourself. And similarly, if you're like I do, I travel for business quite a lot. If I wanted to celebrate, I've had some fantastic customer service at the NEC Hilton, I'd probably post that after I've left that hotel, just to make sure that people don't know exactly where my location is. if for people that I may not wish to know that information about myself. Also, something that's really important is to respect other people's privacy online and to think about when we share details about other people and what they're doing. So if I tomorrow decided to post, oh, lovely to see Mohammed just now walking down Clapham High Street at exactly this time on his own at 7 o'clock in the evening. It's worth checking in with somebody. If you hang out with someone and you want to share about it on social media or post a picture, just say, oh, hey, do you mind if I do that right now? Because sometimes people might have reasons they don't want people to know where they were or what they were doing at a particular time. Mohammed might have been on the way to a job interview he didn't want anybody to know about. He might be avoiding his mother-in-law. I don't know. So it's always worth checking in whether someone is comfortable with you sharing, particularly, you know, specific details about where they were or at a specific time, that kind of thing. We don't really know who people are on the internet. Social media is a great way to make connections. This very project is using social media to create connections. And some of my closest friends in real life are people I originally met online. But we always need to remember that people can pretend to be whoever they want on social media. If you feel like you've created a connection with someone, if you want to take conversations outside of a social media space, think about emailing first. And maybe, and I would recommend this generally for social media anyway, having a separate email account for your social media so that it's not connected to particularly personal or sensitive data. And make sure, obviously, that your passwords are different across your accounts. And I'm sure you will be talking a little bit more about the kind of technical stuff like password managers and things like that. I didn't want to go into that kind of detail, really, but so maybe have a separate email account for your social media profiles. And if you want to kind of get to know someone better and you want to take that conversation off that social media space, I'd recommend starting by emailing, maybe doing something like a Zoom call like this, before you give out your phone number or your address or your personal email address, so that if you start to get to know that person and either you decide you don't actually like them very much or they don't seem to be who you thought they were, you can kind of terminate that quickly. Similarly, if you want to meet up with people, I would recommend trying to find, I don't know, if you want to meet up with someone because they're really into dance like you are, maybe go to an event or a public space where you could go and talk about that hobby, bring somebody with you. Just be sensible, have a plan to leave that you and your friend or person who you've brought with you knows about if you feel uncomfortable, you know, even like a little code word. I had a good friend when I was online dating, and her signal to kind of let's get out of here was that she had to put a roast chicken in the oven, which felt slightly implausible, but at least I knew that was the cue to be like, let's go. We're not very keen on this guy. And the thing is, you might be thinking, oh my goodness, Amy, I am a grown adult. Like, I know all this stuff. It's really, really obvious. But I do this for a job. I advise businesses on how to use social media and reach disabled people. I've made money from online content. I've done sponsorships. But recently, I fell for an online scam where a person in the video game industry was discovered through a journalistic investigation to have hoaxed the whole community. They had been impersonating up to 6 different disabled people online and had even created an imaginary personality for this one advocate and faked the death of this person and used the pretend death of this imaginary person to fundraise money. And many, many people within the community gave them that money because they believed that that person was a real person. They believed that they'd worked with them, that they'd met them, and I fell for it. And I was absolutely taken in by this person. We did work together on projects online. So you really do need to, you know, that's quite an extreme case, but it does happen. And so always be very confident that you have ways of safely knowing that the person you're talking to is actually the person that you're talking to. The next C is conduct. This is about our online behaviors. and behaviors that could actually put us at risk online. The algorithm, so the way social media works, feeds the fire. So if you post lots of travel content, you'll probably get travel content back in your feed. If you really enjoy watching videos of people falling over, you'll probably get more videos of people falling over. This is also the case, however, for posting or liking hateful comments, consuming any adult content, any political content, or engaging in what is known as clickbait articles or online debates. So those articles or blogs or podcasts that are intentionally polemical or incendiary, you can of course choose, you know, it's your internet use, it's your internet history. You can look at what you want if you're an adult, but just be aware of the path that it might lead you down. Certain platforms we now know, like X, actively encourage negative behavior, and they will boost and give kind of spotlight time to confrontational exchanges. And what could feel like, oh, I'm just going to do a really frustrated post about, oh, I hate that particular footballer, or I'm really annoyed with that brand or that shop, could even be the first step towards negative platforms or negative content kind of being pushed more your way. So if you notice that kind of thing, just remember just to disengage from it. Don't like it, don't share it if you don't want the algorithms to boost that kind of stuff towards you. Unfortunately, in my experience as well, algorithms quite like to boost kind of angry or frustrated or upset posts and content more than it will the happy stuff. Beware of also, I would say, getting caught up in something called outrage baiting. So what is outrage baiting? And this is often where groups of people or stories or issues will be used to kind of stoke up a cause or make people feel angry about something. Disabled people, often we get portrayed as vulnerable on our stories, can be really powerful in making change, but they can also be utilized for particular agendas without our permission. So, for example, I do quite a lot of advocacy about violence against women and girls, and I was campaigning about improvements for kind of police and public transport staff awareness about sexual harassment that many disabled women face on public transport. So I was talking about this quite a lot online, talking sometimes about my own experiences of that, and a right-wing group picked up my kind of posts about it and used them to invent an entirely false narrative to kind of stoke Islamophobic hate based on this kind of story that they layered on top of what I'd said. Now, obviously, I had absolutely no control about that narrative that was put onto my experience, but it's worth being aware that if you do share some of those more vulnerable moments, that, as it's happened to me, it can end up on the front page of the Daily Mail as well, because sometimes the media likes things that sound shocking or sound vulnerable, or sound upsetting. And it's worth knowing that the Daily Mail didn't do it completely without my consent, multiple occasions, as have other newspapers. Sometimes I've not even known I've been in a newspaper until I've had a friend or family member call up and say, oh my God, I saw that article, are you okay? And I'm like, what now? I don't speak to the press about anything, but it's public. And if they can just scrape it off your social media, I've had one tweet, and it's a 500-word article that apparently infers all this stuff about my lived experience. So yeah, be aware that media can do that, and you can complain about it and you can request that it can be removed. If they've used the only caveat to that is that they cannot use any images without your permission, because you hold the copyright of images, or whoever's taken the photograph holds the copyright of the images. So if they've used images of you without your permission, you can get those taken down immediately and or be compensated for their use. Contract. This is about the financial risks we face online. I'm not kind of focusing on that so much today, but the advice always stands: don't click the link. Just don't click the link. it's always something to be aware of. If you get a suspicious link about payments or about accounts or about a text that says, I've got your parcel, don't click the link. Don't give out any financial information or pay for a good or service if you don't trust the source or you can't confirm the source. If somebody says they're calling from your bank, put the phone down and call the bank back. Just don't click the link. And also when you're getting into things like content creation, if you're posting videos, if you're doing blogs or podcasts and you begin to get an audience, be aware of when it sounds like it's too good to be true, because you could be offered, because you'll see this happen with other influencers and content creators, right? People get offered holidays and clothes and trainers and this and that and the other, and they do adverts. That absolutely is something you can do, and I've done it. But if anyone is saying that they're from an agency or from a brand and they're asking to kind of have financial information straight away, or asking you for lots of personal details and information straight away, it probably is too good to be true, and it might be a scam. So always check. And if you think that you want to do that kind of work, it's worth exploring maybe working with an agency or like a PR company or someone who would then organize that for you and kind of arrange whoever's gonna, you know, if you're going to do makeup looks, they'll find the makeup brands that want to work with you, that kind of thing. Does all of that make sense so far? Do you have any questions at the moment? Hopefully you're not all terrified of ever going online again. Any questions at all?
I think I have a question, Amy, sorry.
Sure.
You mentioned that only images of oneself are copyright protected.
Mm-hmm.
So if I write, for example, a social media post and that post is taken by another media platform and they completely, like it happened to you, skewed my words and anything, what legal case or rights do I have, or don't I have any?
I mean, I'm not a legal expert, but I think unless it's libel, then you wouldn't have grounds to challenge it. So unless, and the libel laws in this country are very complicated and they do not really tend to favor the person being libeled. So if they used a social media post to imply something that was factually and evidentially factually untrue, then you would have a legal case. But you'd obviously have to fund that entirely yourself. You know, that's, you know, kind of that's where a lot of people talk about, you know, being cancelled or being scared of being cancelled. And that's because actually there's not a lot of recourse to that in the UK as far as a legal case would be concerned. You can, I mean, and I have done, you can challenge newspapers and you can ask them to take down articles and they may or may not do it, but that could take days or weeks. And then people have read it by then, right? The situation I had was 2 years ago where my little boy was very unwell. We needed to go to the urgent care department at the hospital, and the security guard tried to deny us entry because of my guide dog, tried to say we couldn't come into the hospital. I will say this, it is the only time in my entire life I've ever been grateful to the presence of a large group of drunk football fans, because this large group of drunk football fans who were sat waiting in the A&E, I think they may have had a bit of a ruckus, all got up and shouted at the security guard and said that he had to let me in. But I tweeted this experience and said, you know, this is a really horrible experience that I've had. You know, I was nearly turned away from medical care for my sick child because I have a guide dog. The reason I did it is because I did actually want to engage media attention to get the hospital in trouble, because I wasn't very pleased with how they'd reacted to the situation after I complained. And I did do one article with the BBC. I approached them and I said, I've got this story, do you want to cover it? Which you absolutely can do, by the way, including if you want to do it as part of your social media work. You can absolutely work with the press. It's just like, make sure it's on your terms. So I gave an interview, I gave all the details to the BBC, but then like 6 or 7 other media outlets scraped the story off social media. And it was quite, I mean, you know, I've actually found that one quite funny because it reassured me that I had maintained a certain level of privacy online despite being an advocate, because between, you know, the Guardian, the Daily Mail, the Yorkshire Evening Post, Yahoo News, whoever had found this story, my little boy was a little boy, little girl, he was a year old, he was a tiny infant. I lived in London, I lived in Ipswich, you know, they couldn't, none of the actual details like matched up and were accurate because they'd just taken it off social media. But of course, what was difficult about that experience is I then had family members saying, oh my God, I've just seen you on this front page of my, you know, online news. Are you all right? And I was like, yes, you know, it's, you know, oh, you get, and then people will contact you and say, Wayme, I never thought you would give an interview to the Daily Mail. And it's like, I didn't give them an interview. So in that one, I did ask them to remove the article. They didn't. And they can just say, well, you put it on a public forum.
Thank you. Thanks.
Any other questions? All right, well, I might want to give one back to you then. So social media is fantastic for giving disabled people a voice that we don't necessarily always get through traditional media. That's why I think social media is really important. Is there anybody that you really like online, maybe somebody that you follow, somebody that you like reading what they talk about, or videos that they post, and they're a disabled person, could be a blind or visually impaired person? Is there anyone that you really like? And what do you think that they are doing well? Anyone got any examples? Could also be like an organization you think does a good job of representing disabled people online.
I have one.
Go on.
Yeah, so I don't know if you heard about Lucy Edward.
Yes, I know Lucy very well.
Yeah, and she does a brilliant job
Right.
in terms of, with my opinion, obviously I don't know her personally, but the content is quite good. She travels around and shows different ways of using different things. For example, she does makeup videos that gives her confidence to do makeup even if you can't see, and a lot of other content when she travels, and she give insights into how the place is and how she store her things on the fridge, for example, how
Yeah.
she finds things. So that I find like very useful. So
Yeah,
not
I love her travel stuff, like when she goes to different countries and talks about like all the different road crossings. I find that
Yes.
fascinating.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, but when I was thinking like about her, the way she portrays and the way she protects obviously her social media must be quite good, because so far she's still on social media in different platforms, and yeah, it's working out.
Yeah, she's got a very successful business empire as a result. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great example. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sarah, did you want to share one?
Yeah, I follow Purple Tuesday.
Oh, yes.
That covers pretty much all types of accessibility needs. Posts regularly, and it doesn't just celebrate one day, which it did originally. It celebrates all accessibility needs and is regularly posting what's happening, whatever day of the week it is, whatever week of the year it is, for all types of accessibility needs. And it's really punching into the world, both on LinkedIn, Facebook, and in social media, what it is that we should be aware of and what's happening. And it's really bringing to the forefront. And it's also making us, because of that, much more aware of people with accessibility forefront, the people who are aware of them. And because of that, I've become very much more aware through the LinkedIn platform, people that are doing things. I can't remember his name, but there's a gentleman who is really in the forefront of trying to take wheelchairs forward to make them more accessible, to go over rougher terrain and all that.
Yes, I know who you mean. I can't remember his name either. Yeah. That's a really good example. I think they're a really great example of doing that kind of education and awareness work. And I think you're right. I think their LinkedIn presence is really strong, and they're very good at sort of speaking to business. Does that make sense? They communicate in quite a kind of businessy, effective way over there. And that's something to take note of, actually, is that if you do grow kind of your content, it's about also thinking about what audiences on what platform, right? So the type of post that I'll write for LinkedIn would be very different from a post I would do on Instagram. You know, on LinkedIn, I'll often tie it into business or work or equality or rights, you know, speaking in the language that's a little bit more, not necessarily professional or businessy, but maybe has a little bit more learning intention. Whereas on Instagram, I can post about like fun things or silly things, and I can even have a little bit of a moan on Instagram about something that's frustrating for me. So I think it's also, that's a really good point to make about how different spaces, different audiences, you might do different posts. Anybody else got an example they wanted to share? I think those are two really great examples.
I was going to say Lucy Edwards as well, but there's another couple that I follow that I think are really good, and it's of people that I can relate to. One's Becky's Blurred.
Oh yes.
Can't think of the full thing. It's not showing the full name. Becky's Blurred Vision or something, I think it's called. Oh, Becky's Blurred Perspective. And Katie's Vision.
Oh yes, Katie's Vision. I know that one. That's
Yeah.
really good. Yeah. I think that point you make as well is really important, Vicky, and links onto my points next really well, actually, is about that kind of relatability. And I think often as disabled people on social media, one of the most powerful things we do is to be relatable, right? To share our lived experience in a way that connects with each other. I would not be here and I wouldn't be talking to you if I hadn't found a community of people on Twitter, may she rest in peace, that I related to, and people I felt I could have conversations with that understood my perspective. And that's why I think advocacy is so important. And it's a great campaigning tool as well, because you're sharing a unique perspective with new audiences. There are, I think, a few common challenges that if your content is more around advocacy or sharing your lived experience, that I think pretty much everyone faces. And these are particularly mine. It kind of links back to my earlier point about content, but you do not owe the internet everything. When you start getting traction, when you get those numbers, if you have a viral video, it can feel great. And it can feel like you're reaching people and you're making a difference. You can get, you know, when I get comments, people, you know, I had a video that went really viral of me being stuck on a pavement because there was a Christmas tree in the middle of the path. And Ava had to take me out into the road and around this Christmas tree that was on the pavement because it was blocking our path. And like millions of views it had. And, you know, again, newspapers covered it, blah, blah, blah. And when I had loads of comments like, oh my gosh, you know, I always leave my tree on the pavement. I'm going to be really aware of that now. I'm going to make sure it's disposed of properly. You know, I'll only put it out on the day that it's being collected. And I was like, great, that's brilliant. That's fantastic. I feel like I've made a difference. And that is really positive. But disabled creators are then often kind of pushed by their audience to share more. Because you're offering a unique perspective, and often a perspective that people don't get told about in school, isn't, you know, very much represented in films or in media, people will begin to ask you a lot of questions. You know, I get asked all the time, well, how did you become blind? And my answer is really quick. I was born, the end. But for some people, that might be really, you know, medical details or asking people to live out a tragic moment. You don't have to justify it. If there's something you don't want to share online, you don't owe anybody. You don't owe them that. You don't have to do it. And if your content isn't advocacy, if that doesn't actually interest you, just because you're a disabled person, you don't have to be an advocate online. And if all you want to post about is dance exercise or hiking or the, I don't know, TV show that you really enjoy, you don't have to talk about your blindness. People might ask you, people might tell you that you should tell people because it's educational. But remember, you don't owe the internet anything. You should create the content that you enjoy and that you know, is fun for you. And this kind of goes into a further step that's something that is now being called a parasocial relationship. So a parasocial relationship is when you connect with your audience, and that's great. And people might feel really, like we said, you know, we really like watching certain videos, we really connect with those people. But sometimes online, people will maybe begin to overstep that boundary, and they don't just enjoy your content or your videos or your posts or podcasts, but they start to kind of feel invested in you to the extent that maybe they think that they're entitled to tell you how to do things, whether that's your life choices or, you know, you should do more of this video because I like it. And it can begin to blur the boundary between someone being kind of supportive and it feeling a little bit intrusive. And if you start that feeling of feeling really accountable to your audience and like it's mimicking friendship, but like not a positive friendship, like we've maybe all had one of those friends in our lives that is a bit judgy and likes to tell you, oh, you should do your hair like this, or it would be better if you had this kind of job, or I think, you know, you should date this kind of person. We probably all met someone a bit like that. And if someone online starts to behave like that, it can be called a parasocial relationship. And it's really absolutely acceptable to just state really polite boundaries. It's completely acceptable to do that. So something I've been pressured quite a lot by people online is they want to see more videos about parenting, right? So on my TikTok, I very rarely, occasionally feature like the back of my toddler's head as he's like walking off in the distance. And I've been told, oh, you should do more videos about being a parent, about being a blind mum, and people need to learn about that. And how will people know unless you tell them? And I just said, look, that's not my child's choice. I'm respecting his online privacy. I'm not going to leave all these details about his life on the internet forever. I'm not going to do that. And sometimes you'll get kicked back and be like, oh, that's disappointing. And I think you should do it because then, you know, people would understand and you'd get more support and blah, blah, blah. And I just go, no, thank you. I'm not interested in doing that. You didn't even have to respond to those kind of comments, to be honest. And this is really important. If you burn out, you can't help anyone. So when you gain a profile online, you can end up feeling quite overwhelmed. And especially if advocacy or campaigning or education or awareness raising is a lot of what your content is about, you can feel a bit snowed under by the challenges that your community faces. And that could be for anything. It doesn't have to be about disability. You know, if you're an environmentalist, if you're doing something for the church, if you're doing people for homelessness, for animal rights, whatever your kind of passion and issue is, it can end up feeling like a sense of responsibility. Like I have to share every fundraiser that somebody sends me. I have to, you know, respond to every message from a worried person, or I have to argue with every negative person in the comments. If it starts to feel like too much, take a break, step back. You cannot save the world and solve all its problems by you yourself with your keyboard. You'll run out of capacity to put the energy into things that you really want to put your energy into. And choosing your battles so that you can remain positive and helpful is the most important thing. And social media, even when you're using it to talk about challenging topics like, you know, saving the whales or, you know, local homelessness, it should feel like you're in control of it and it should feel like a positive experience. And if it's beginning to not feel like a positive experience, that's when I would suggest stepping back is a good idea. Does anyone have any questions about those kind of subjects? I'm just going to, for kind of the last bit of what we're talking about today before we do some reflection, it's kind of the trickiest bit, but we do need to talk about online harassment, because even if we are really safe online and we follow those 4 C's and we're really conscious about what we post and we make sure our online safety is good, we can still experience online harassment. And online harassment can come from a group or individuals. And it's different from debate and discussion and conflicting ideas. There's plenty of space for that online. It's not necessarily a bad thing. What's different about online harassment is that it's targeted to make you feel like the internet isn't safe, and it focuses often on harm, including making you feel like you aren't safe to post information. Maybe people might post your personal information publicly. They might send threats to scare you, or they might even directly promote harm against a person or an organization. So when that's happening, that's considered online harassment. The first step is always to report and block. It's worth familiarizing yourself with these tools and where they are on the social platforms you use. So this is if you experience harassment, but actually if you also witness harassment. So we're probably all going to go, and definitely I'm going to be looking up Gulshan's videos later. If I saw someone making a nasty comment, I'm going to report that and make sure that person is blocked from my profile as well, because then that will add up to maybe the social media platform making a decision about that person's behavior. Don't feed the trolls. It's an old but true statement. First of all, if someone is making negative and nasty comments, they may not even be a real person. They might be an AI robot. You don't have to engage with them. Similarly, if you're witnessing hateful comments or negative comments, don't keep replying to them, because that's what they want. They want engagement, they want attention, they want their comments to get boosted so they're higher and higher and more people see them. Report them, block them. It might seem like you're being supportive if you're defending the person. Like if we went onto a Lucy Edwards video, like at the moment, she's talking a lot about her journey to becoming a parent and IVF. And she's getting some really nasty comments about, you know, blind people shouldn't be parents. Now I see that and I think, oh, you meanie, I'm going to tell you what. But actually, all that's doing is feeding that kind of hatefulness that that person wants. And it then means that for Lucy, she keeps seeing those interactions popping up in the notifications. You know, those keep being shown to her, which probably doesn't make her feel very good. If you're feeling overwhelmed, you can go private on lots of platforms. So this means that people are limited in what they can see. It means that you have to approve them before they can follow you or interact with you. That can be a really helpful break if you've had any like negative interactions. If something feels quite serious, get some evidence, take a screenshot, keep a record. If you think it's the same person and they're creating multiple accounts, you'll want evidence as what's been said, because you can ultimately, in some instances, report it to the police. I would always recommend talking to an organization like Cyber Helpline. They can give you some good advice about steps you can take to protect yourself online, you know, what to do if someone does do something like post personal information. They can support you in reporting things to the police as well. It is unlikely that I like to think it is unlikely that any of you would face significant online harassment, but you kind of might see the edges of it. You kind of might get a few of those nasty comments or judgments or criticisms. And it can just be worth kind of stepping back and remembering, I'm just going to block that person. I'm going to delete that comment. I don't have to engage with it. And kind of it's some good awareness to also maybe spread around your friends and family, especially if you've got a more public profile. Something that can really help as well is if you are going to content create, is to have like, if you have like a personal Instagram, and then you can have one for your like advocacy and where you kind of do kind of campaigning or talk about dancing or your hobby or whatever. Separating those out sometimes can be a good idea, because it can sometimes be upsetting for people that we love, you know, seeing nasty comments under videos, even if we're kind of dealing with it and we're okay. It also means it's helpful for like, if you do kind of make it a bit more professional in the future. Because if you started your Instagram, you know, 10 years ago and it's lots of pictures of you eating sandwiches at the bottom, and then you want to make like a professional dance business out of it, it can be good to kind of separate it out. Does that make sense? Okay, so in our last few minutes, I am going to invite everyone to do a bit of a reflection exercise. So this has been a really brief introduction to online safety. what I hope it's really done is kind of provoke some thoughts and reflections. So to help you collect those thoughts, I'm going to give you 3 minutes to, you can think this through, you can make a note for yourself, whatever works. You could leave yourself a voice note. And it's quite metaphorical, but hopefully you'll stick with me. I'd like you to think of, if you imagine a flower, and I want you to think of the blossom, the bloom, something that is really growing in your understanding, something that feels very positive for you. I'd like you to think of a little flower bud, something you want to nurture, something you want to grow, and then maybe also a thorn or a spiky bit of the stem, something that's still a little bit uncomfortable, something you feel like you want to take away and have a think about. So a blossom, something that's grown in your understanding today, a bud, something you want to nurture and grow and learn more about, and maybe a spiky thorn, something that maybe feels a little bit uncomfortable and you need to do some more learning on. So I'll give you 3 minutes to have a think of that. You don't have to share it at the end. It's more of a way of you to collect your thoughts. But I'll shut up for 3 minutes. You've got about a minute left. Okay, I'm very aware that we are pretty much at the end of our time, but I'm happy to stick around for a few minutes if anyone wants to share any reflections or has any questions. And I don't mind what kind of questions. I think it's always better to ask something than walk away feeling unsure or unclear. Is there anything you wanted to cover at all, Caitlin, or you good?
I had a question.
Sure.
So in terms of with those negative comments, what I've done previously is with those negative comments about like my eyes. What I've done is first, my friend, she was kind of answering those negative comments, but I told her not to because that's my privacy.
Exactly. Yes.
And that was engaging more negative comments.
Exactly.
And then for a while, I just ignored all of the comments that I was receiving. And then when it was quite heavy in some of the videos, I just stopped comment. Like there's option where you could just
Turn it
off. Yeah, turn it off for a while. But then that reduced my I think views somehow. I don't know.
It does, yeah. It's a really difficult balance, isn't it? Because I think for me, I mean, if I had a penny for every time I was asked, well, if you're blind, how can you film?
Yeah.
I would not be here. I'd have my own Caribbean island.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think you're right. Like turning it off is just a way to kind of protect yourself a little bit. But yes, it will reduce engagement because comments is a form of engagement. Some people, like I just have a pinned video. I have a pinned video that says, this is how accessible technology works. Now, obviously, that's very different from something that's commenting about specifics about your appearance, your disability, your medical condition. Some people choose to do it. They do one video on it and they're like, right, I feel comfortable giving you this answer. Here's the answer. And then you know, I then don't feel like obliged to continue to answer or engage with those comments. On TikTok specifically, you can filter out words.
Okay.
So there is particular words or phrases. I think you can even do a phrase where it will like fold and hide the comment for you if it contains those words.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I've done it with a few things like because I think even some like swear words can get through filters, and I find those comments are often quite rude. So even having, if people ask, if you notice that there's a pattern in the way that people ask the question, so if the question is what's wrong with your eyes, you can just put the word wrong as a filter, and then it should, if you ask that question, it should sort of filter it and hide it. Some other platforms have it, some don't. You can request approval for comments before you allow them to be posted, I think, on TikTok.
And how do we do that? Is it in settings?
I think it's in settings, yeah. I'd have to look it up. But then that does still mean you have to kind of read through and approve them. So whether that actually helps, I don't know.
To be honest, I just then turned on comments again and I just ignored.
Yeah.
Even though my algorithm I think reduced.
Yeah.
But I just left it.
Yeah. And that's your right. Like if it's making it a less enjoyable experience, then tough.
Yeah.
Like tough for those people, I mean, who want to comment those things. They don't get to say it. Like
Thank you so much. It was really useful, the session today.
Thank you. Any other questions?
It's only it came to me just to think about something I could do in terms of videos. I mean, I'm intermediate level guitar player. Well, two questions. Firstly, is there any problem if you stepping on other people's toes in terms of doing sort of things? So I put up a video of me. Here's how you play such and such a song with a guitar. And secondly, do you always flag up your blindness whenever you're doing? I mean, I think in this case, if I was teaching how to use it, but if I did, even if I just decided to put something on me playing the guitar, do you always flag up your blindness before you do your sets if you shoot on the videos? Yeah.
First question, everyone on the internet is doing everything and copying each other. So no, you are never standing on anyone's toes. You would not believe the mundane and bizarre things that people will watch on the internet. Like there is an incredibly popular genre of internet videos called ASMR. Has anyone else come across those? And it's literally people doing things like slowly opening crisp packets. Because some people really like the sound of a really slowly opened crisp packet. And that video will have millions upon millions of views. People watch people do the weirdest, most boring, most bizarre thing on the internet. So yeah, of course, there are other people teaching people how to play guitar, but you know what? You might do it really well, and people might really like the way that you do it. So go ahead. No, I don't think you have to mention that you're blind. My videos do, because I talk about blindness a lot. And I'm filming a guide dog, so that's kind of a giveaway. But yeah, I don't think you need to.
Well, it depends if I'm teaching. It might be useful if I was saying, kids, hey, play this song on the guitar, but I'll see. I mean, mainly I do stand-up comedy, but that's a different ballgame.
Yeah.
But no, but at the same time, in terms of practice videos, it might be worth trying to put something on his how he plays such a long guitar. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Yeah.
No problem.
No problem. Thanks.
You could enjoy opening a crisp packet while you play the guitar. I don't know.
Hey, true.
Be a whole new genre.
Hey. Okay. No problem. Okay. Cheers.
Anything else?
Yeah, I've got slightly a difficult one.
Sure. I'll try my best.
Okay, so in terms of like kind of when you, because as humans, you know, we are complex and, you know, we have so many layers to us, right? And like, for example, like the disability is one thing, but then like say in my case, I come from an Indian and a Muslim background. So like those things are there as well.
Yeah.
How like do you manage it in terms of like comments and things? Because I know like, and I guess the second question is like when it's out of your control to get it removed. Like I know my friend did an interview on a TV channel, and then they put that on YouTube, and then some of the comments are like, well, he's doing it for benefits, or he's, you know, future terrorist or something, you know, something ridiculous, like crazy like that, you know. But then you haven't got the control to remove those. So I'm just saying, how would you approach it when you've got like multiple layers? Because yes, you do want to talk about disability and stuff, because the Asian community is not very accessible, let's say, in my experience and in my friend's experience. So, you know, it's needed, but then like at the same time, how do you face these negative comments? Because I feel like it's kind of, there's more than one protective characteristic there.
Yeah. So I've experienced this a little bit because I also talk about my sexuality and I talk about feminism. So I kind of have those like layers as well. It's different. But yeah, I mean, you kind of answered it a bit yourself. Humans are complex and some people are always going to be hateful. I would say if you feel concern about, well, how do I be the best version that I want to be to communicate a message the most effectively? And if you wanted to do particularly media work and engage at that level, I would explore some media training because it's really good. And I don't know if that's something that this program could offer later on, but some really good media training. I've done some, and it helped me a lot to make sure that, yeah, exactly as you say, I might go and give a 4-minute interview on a news program, but it could get clipped up into 10 seconds for a soundbite. And yeah, that is out of your control. You kind of have to make the decision about how prepared you are for the consequences of that, and say no. Like, you don't have to do it. I would also seek out other advocates or advocacy organizations that are maybe already doing some of the work. So I think about particularly the issues talking about. My friend and colleague Shani Danda does some amazing work around reaching the South Asian community around disability and accessibility. And she's the type of person I would say she would be able to find those opportunities or kind of point you in the direction where it would be like a welcoming and supported space to start that. And maybe there's already a podcast that is a really good space for that you could go and talk to, or maybe there's a particular publication that she says, oh, I know this journalist and they're really great at, like, you know, they'll always run the article past you beforehand. So sometimes it's about kind of find people that are already doing it well. And in most instances, if you are supporting the same cause, they will be like, absolutely, come and talk to me about it. I can share some top tips.
I mean, it's kind of because I'm in the sort of planning stage of an idea, but I kind of want to, if I do get into a more sort of making like feature documentaries and stuff, I'd like to explore sort of different races and kind of how they all approach disability, because I think it's sort of fascinating. Like
It is, and we need more reflection on
Um,
that, to be honest. I think
and that kind of, but like so the, yeah, that's why I was thinking, like, you know, so, you know, obviously if I was to then go to, like, say, Black community, for example, and that, and like, how do you also make sure that, you know, people you're working, or, you know, make sure they're also protected, you know, because obviously you want, so if I was to do this documentary in the near future, would be like to have all these different aspects and perspectives, but then also to make, you know, to make sure all the people participating are, they're all still comfortable, and, you know, it's helping to break down barriers, not cause other issues, if you get what I'm saying.
yeah, and to be honest, I think the real answer to that is, again, you might want to do some research into like journalism ethics
Yeah.
and kind of start maybe that journey, because I think there are resources and advice about particularly that. Also, if you do something, and I'm sure the team at Bournemouth would be able to advise on this, like if you applied for something like funding to help make a documentary like that, you would have to demonstrate that you'd done due diligence around those ethical processes of making sure that everyone was safe and well protected. So sometimes, you know, yeah, if you did it entirely yourself, I would maybe look into some kind of good journalistic ethics practice, and there might be some good advice around that.
Can I just mention that we are having a session on media content in a few weeks with a journalist, a blind journalist. So Mohammed, this is where you can really ask this kind of question. You can talk about ethics and the coverage and storytelling. So that will be a really good.
Oh, great.
Oh yeah. I've seen the session, but I didn't realize that the host was a journalist. But no, thanks for that, Kathleen.
Thank you.
Can I ask who's doing it?
It's Ibrahim Emara, an Egyptian
That's
academic.
great. Fantastic.
Yes, he's part of our team.
Oh, fantastic. That'll be great. God, I'd want to go to that.
You're more than welcome. I'm afraid we have to bring this to a close, but Amy, thank you so much for this really important session. And I think we all will remember the 4 C's. It's definitely something that I haven't thought about in this way. It's really, really useful. Thank you so much. And just to flag up, we'll share this recording with other people who couldn't make it today. So we'll put it on our website and our Facebook group. Please feel free to sign up to the Facebook group if you haven't done it already, because we are posting resources there. And yeah, thank you everyone for being here today, and have a nice day. Thank you.
Thanks,
Bye.
everybody.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.